All right, I'm sure you've heard about the infinite potential of real estate and would love to explore getting into the private equity side of investing. In this video, I'll give you my top 5 tips on how to get into real estate private equity and what will kill your chances of landing your dream job. All right. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand is what is real estate private equity and how does it differ from just normal real estate investing? Well, normal real estate investing, you're going out and, whether you're using your own personal balance sheet or you're working with friends or family or what have you, you're going out and you're buying your own real estate. And there are lots of different strategies that are out there that you could pursue. Maybe you're buying houses to flip, or maybe you're buying rental properties that you're going to rent out and generate rental income from. Or maybe you're like feeling really ambitious and you want to buy a plot of land and develop it and add houses or commercial real estate. Or maybe you want to buy commercial real estate. Maybe you buy a strip mall and you get into the game of renting out commercial space, right? Lots of different potential strategies. Invariably, though, if you're doing that as an individual, that's going to be very different than working as a real estate private equity investor. In real estate private equity, you are really kind of an institutional investor that is doing a lot of those same strategies. So in real estate private equity, you typically will have a large fund behind you that you've gone out and you've raised money from lots of different investors. They have committed that capital into a quote unquote blind pool, a limited partnership. And then you as the manager of that are going out and using that capital to invest in different companies and deploy capital. Now, a real estate private equity investor's job really comprises of 5 main things that they do on a day-to-day basis. And these, frankly, are the skills that if you want to work in real estate private equity, you need to develop and get really good at if you want to become a world-class real estate private equity investor. Now, the first one is, like I said earlier, a real estate private equity investor, the big thing that differentiates them from just individuals going out and buying property is their ability to raise capital from investors and have a blind pool that gives them the ability to move quickly and have lots bigger scale on their investing. So that's tip number 1, is get good at raising capital. I have a friend who is phenomenal on the golf course, and he was actually hired by one of the largest real estate private equity funds in the world because of his ability to play golf and smooth talk investors and convince them to invest into their fund. And that was his job, and he was really good at it. So one of the skill sets that can be incredibly valuable is that ability to raise money from investors. Now, there are some people that are really good at investing, but terrible when it comes to sales and really struggle to raise money from investors. But if you can hone that ability to get in front of investors, tell the story, get them excited, and get them to commit, that is an incredibly valuable skill for not just real estate private equity, but basically for all fund managers. The next thing that a real estate private equity investor does is they're going to do due diligence on deals, right? So part of that is screening new investment opportunities that come in, whether that's, residential properties or large commercial buildings or what have you, depending on the strategy. You got to get really good at assessing those different investment opportunities and being able to do due diligence quickly and identify the really winning opportunities. Real estate's a little bit different than leverage buyouts or venture capital because typically you're looking at lots and lots of transactions, but you also are doing a lot of transactions. Now, in early stage venture capital, for example, you may look at a lot of deals, but you're still going to be pretty picky on the ones you do. In real estate, you tend, especially if you have like a residential strategy, you're probably going to be looking at lots of properties and making decisions on those properties very quickly and building a very large portfolio of real estate assets, which means you have to be really good at evaluating those companies and doing it quickly. Another thing that a lot of real estate private equity investors delve into is property development. Now, this can be a little bit nuanced depending on their strategy, but at the end of the day, even if you're buying up real estate assets that already exist, there probably is going to be elements of the job that also require you to understand how to do large-scale developments. Or how, that could even just be improving the current properties. Even if you buy current residential homes, you probably are going to have to go in and do some remodeling work. Maybe part of your strategy is to buy land and to develop that land, whether you're building houses on it or maybe putting in hotels or other commercial buildings, right? You got to be familiar with all the permitting, the construction, the contracting, all the elements that go into developing a piece of property and getting it ready to rent or sell. Another thing that a lot of real estate private equity investors need to get good at, or at least really understand in depth, is property management. So if you've got all of these properties, you have to ensure that, one, you can find renters for them, that those renters are paying on time, and that those renters are being serviced so that they're having a good experience and continue to pay you. And that in of itself can be like a huge challenge. It's a lot of customer support, and it's also understanding basic marketing, right? Because you got to be able to get in front of renters and convince them to rent from you or lease from you, depending on the type of customer it is. You also have to deal with like what happens when toilets break and the grass needs to be mowed and all of those other things. And typically good real estate private equity firms are going to have a property management part of their business, but you still have to understand kind of all those ins and outs so you can properly manage your property management company to ensure that they're providing good service to your tenants. The last one is, okay, so you went out, you bought all this real estate, you got in, you did your remodels or you did the development, you went out, you found tenants for all the properties and you're managing them all and they're doing great. Now what? What's the last thing? Well, you got to be good at selling these properties because these funds don't last forever typically. Usually they're like 10-year funds. And so you're going to get in, you're going to make some investments. And then over time, you're probably going to harvest those investments. You're going to sell them off to somebody else so that you can return all of the capital back to your investors. So this requires that you have the ability to sell as well as buy. And as my mom constantly reminds me, it's easier to buy than it is to sell. And so being able to sell property is, a skill in of itself, right? You have to build the relationships with other potential buyers in a market, whether those are other real estate private equity funds or large publicly traded REITs, right? You want to be able to have lots of relationships, be able to sell the property well to those potential investors and buyers so that you can sell them, generate returns on your investments, and return those profits back to your investors so that you can then go out and raise a subsequent fund and do it all over again. If you want to work in real estate private equity, one of the most common pathways is to do investment banking first. There are a lot of investment banks that specialize in real estate transactions, and that can be a great way to cut your teeth. The other thing is that investment banks are going to teach you the basics of financial modeling and underwriting and due diligence, all of which are broadly applicable to real estate as well. I mean, if you can understand how to run a DCF, then you can probably learn the rest of the metrics and things you need to learn on the real estate side that are specific to it. At the beginning of the video, though, I promised one tip to help you maximize your chances of getting a job in this industry, and that is be passionate about real estate. You can start today to look at deals. And in fact, one of the best ways to get into real estate private equity is to start doing deals yourself and start inviting other investors to come in alongside you. You can do this through SPV structures where maybe you want to buy a house to flip and you bring in some investors to join you in that journey. And then if that goes well, you roll it into a bigger deal and a bigger deal and a bigger deal. And eventually you get to the point where you have a solid track record that you can sell to investors and raise a fund. And if you really want to maximize the profits and returns that you can generate personally, that's probably the best pathway to do it. If you enjoyed this video and you're interested also in venture capital and what that's like, check out my other video where we talk about how to get into venture capital without any experience.